Podcasts go down south. The latest from our daily newsletter at podnews.net. Is this the most southerly podcast ever recorded? Dan Snow's History Hit is taking his podcast to find Ernest Shackleton's lost endurance shipwreck in Antarctica. Snow says, when I started the History Hit podcast in 2015, I was sitting in a travel lodge talking into a phone. I couldn't be more excited that now, 7 years later, I'll be broadcasting from the moving ice floes of Antarctica via the latest satellite communications to an audience of millions. Well, is it the most southerly podcast ever recorded? Probably not. Bertrand's Universe followed Eric Bertrand Larsen on a solo trip to the South Pole itself earlier this year, but...
Men du må snakke norsk. Hvis du ikke gjør det, vil det meste av podcasten være bortkastet tid.
And that's you told then. Now, do you want to do a podcast without much competition? Well, avoid a podcast in English, Indonesian or Swedish, says Rephonic, which has looked at the Apple Podcasts data to discover what they call the low-hanging fruit. Also, Rephonic advise, avoid shows about cricket, there are an awful lot of them, and consider chemistry or volleyball, the data says. Amazon Music and Wondery have signed How I Built This with Guy Raz. Wondery gets the exclusive ad sales and YouTube distribution rights for simulcasts. NPR keeps the radio distribution rights and the underwriting credits. Production of the show will double to 2 a week, and Amazon Music gets exclusive rights to air the podcast for a week before anybody else. Apple Podcasts has published a guide on how to use chapters. Apple Podcasts supports chapters embedded in MP4, MP3 and AAC files. We're told the company would like more podcasters to support chapters and chapter-specific artwork. Magellan AI has released the Podcast Advertising Quarterly Benchmark Report for Q4 2021. They highlight an increase in ad loads in podcasts. It's World Radio Day on Sunday, February the 13th, and as is traditional, the Hindenburg Pro audio editor will be heavily discounted. You can expect 40% off annual subscriptions and perpetual licenses, and 10% of all income from Hindenburg's World Radio Day 2022 sale proceeds will be donated to cultural survival. Powderkeg Media and Echoverse have announced a darkly comedic supernatural drama podcast starring Alison Pill, and TED Audio Collective has added a new podcast, Your Undivided Attention, to its roster. And Sonant posted a demo of their product, looking for naughty words in the Joe Rogan podcast. It took just 12 seconds to find a whole lot of them. And in People News, James Cater, the head of studios for Spotify UK and Ireland, looks as if he's to leave the company since his role is being advertised on the Spotify website. He'd been with Spotify for more than 6 years. That's intriguing. I wonder where he's going. James O. Boggs, who left Apple Podcasts in July, is hiring Ruby developers for his new company, the New River Bluff Company, which is making, quote, next-generation audio tools. And Tiffany Asherty has been promoted to US Director of the Acast Creator Network, and still at Acast, Tim Ruggeri has been promoted to US Director of Development and Studios. And in podcast news, Proud Stutter features Mariam Elba as a guest this week. She's a ProPublica research reporter with a stutter and talks about how that works in a busy newsroom. In the US, as many as 18 million people have trouble with their speech, and stutterers, or stammerers if you like it better that way, are surprisingly prevalent in the audio world. Just ask me. Bad Vibes is hosted by 23-year-old TikTok stars Alexis Barber and Talia Lichstein, targeting a Gen Z audience, and launched this week. In the first episode, Talia and Alexis bond over their love of Valentine's Day. The Big Silence is part of a new charitable organisation and content platform, the Big Silence Foundation, which is dedicated to normalising conversations around mental health issues. It's hosted by Karina Dawn and launched this week. And over the course of these past 4 years, Marvel's Voices has nearly 70 episodes, 8 anthologies, and over 20 essays released, spotlighting creators and characters representing various communities. It returns today with Season 5. The first guest of the new season is legendary artist Brian Stelfreeze. And that's the latest from our newsletter. For all the links, we're at podnews.net.